Hello and welcome to Money Talk with me, Russell Quirk, the show that tackles consumer finance issues that affect you on a day-to-day basis. This week we're doing something a little bit different because we're going to save every single one of you £100 off your household bills just by watching this show. Money is tighter than ever, so what can we do to help? Embarking on this money-saving mission with me today is a consumer rights expert called Martyn. Not that one, this one. Martyn James, how you doing?
It's good to meet you, Russell. Thanks for having me on.
Good, right, let's just get right into it. There are lots and lots of categories, headings to talk about here, I think, in terms of those challenges in a financial way that affect ordinary households every day. Let's try and save some people some money in a very real and practical way. Let's start with heating and electricity, so kind of household bills. What's your advice to people when it comes to the bare essentials of powering their house and their heating? How can they save money?
So the biggest thing, to avoid things like, paying out more money, like insulation obviously is one of the best ways to actually save some money. But in terms of actually practically saving it, knock down the thermostat. Now is the time. We've left it on over winter, but now is the time you can really start to drop that thermostat down completely below 16 if need be, and then just knock it up if it gets a little bit warmer. Yep. The big energy users within the kitchen are what's known as the wet devices. This is the washing machine, the dishwasher. These have to actually heat the water that goes through them, and that's where you actually get to the big price increases. So if you don't need to put the washer dryer on and you've got a clothing rack or just want to peg out the clothes, that's probably the best way you're going to make some savings. It's worthwhile pointing out that one of the biggest ways you can save money on your bill is to actually have a look at it, because over 1 million errors were made with account switching alone in 2020 before all of this happened.
1 million errors?
Just in switching. That's from Ofgem, the regulator. They found that. That's just in switching. Now imagine the percentage of actual errors on the bills. There are so many things that can go wrong. I see countless complaints about it.
So scrutinise your bill, because I guess most of those errors were in the power company's favour, not the consumer's favour.
That's absolutely right.
Funny that, isn't it?
They all come from estimates, they all come from, even if you've given readings, don't assume that the energy companies put it on your bill, because sometimes the computer will go, it doesn't make sense.
And quickly, Martyn, smart meters, yes or no?
Smart meters, very effective way to actually save some money. There is a waiting list at the moment. If yours is playing up,
a waiting list for smart meters?
A huge waiting list. So make sure that you, if you do switch provider, you can actually make that conditional on switching to a new provider, that they install a new meter.
Right, got it. Okay, fantastic advice. Next, water and council tax. So two bills that people won't think that they can change, two bills that they would think would be static. So let's talk about council tax first. Many people would have had their council tax bill through the post over the last few weeks, generally showing an increase of something like 4 or 5%. So that's obviously provided more of a squeeze. Tips on how someone might actually better save money on council tax?
So my top tip with council tax is one that's actually startlingly obvious. When you hear it, you'll think, it's but really, really effective. Most council tax bills are divided up into 10-month chunks, but you can actually ask your council to divide it over 12. It might not sound like a huge reduction, but actually it can knock your bill down by 25 to 40 quid. Depending on the size of your house, it can go a lot bigger. So that's the easiest thing that you can do straight away. There's been a lot of issue about rebanding of properties. There's been quite a few estimates from various organisations about the number of people who are in properties that have been estimated as being in the wrong band.
I heard that number's 400,000 properties.
Well, spot on with that one.
Potentially,
yeah, potentially, and it could be even more. The problem is we have different ways of measuring the banding of properties in England, in Scotland and
Wales. It's all based on the 1991 property value.
It really is. 1998 in Scotland, very confusing things in other areas. The whole thing is ludicrously
So are you saying you can appeal against your council tax band?
Yeah, you certainly
can.
If
you're a D or an E, and let's say you're a D and you think you should be a C, or you can actually, and how would you go about that process?
So the easiest way to do it is, first of all, don't use any of the claims management companies that are offering to do this for you for a charge. You can do it for free. If you go to your local council and go to the council tax banding part of the website, it will give you the broad categories that your house falls into. If you think it's wrong, tell the council, and best of all, if it is wrong, not only there, but in previous properties that you've been in, you can actually claim the difference back.
Any advice as to how people might be able to save money on water? Because it's quite a lot of money, isn't it, the water bill?
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is a source of immense frustration at the moment, particularly with those images of brown rivers and beautiful coastal sites being ruined by sewage. So there are a couple of options. Water meters are something that's worth considering. Now, with water meters, it all comes down to how much your family consumes. So if you're getting by and there's only you or your partner, you don't have kids, you live in a relatively small property, then it might be worthwhile considering, because potentially that could cut your bill right down. Now, if you are a user of a lot of water, you've got a bigger family, a bigger house, then
you're not going to advocate sharing baths here, Martyn, are you?
Good Lord, no.
But the serious point, showers, not baths, right? Showers save an awful lot of water.
Showers all the way forward. And here's another thing that people often don't realise. You can go onto the water company's websites, and they're very sensitive, unsurprisingly, to criticism. Right. So pretty much all of them have freebies that you can ask for. You can usually request one or two, including shower heads that provide less water, so you don't even have to worry about turning the shower off. You can get a lot of these things for free just by contacting the water company.
Can you change your water company like you can change your electricity or gas company?
No, and that's something that we do need to look at.
So it really is a monopoly.
Yes,
and the government, frankly, needs to do something about that. Broadband, let's talk about that, and mobile phones, kind of two sides of the same coin. I'm definitely guilty of this, where I have a broadband contract with whoever, BT, Sky, Virgin, and I let it run and run and run, which is presumably completely the wrong thing to do, rather than checking and then going back and trying to do a deal.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And I believe confession is good for the soul. I come out, I write columns, I talk about these things, and then I don't get round to actually following my own advice. But I have done with broadband and with mobile phones, just to see the savings that can be made. It's estimated that millions of people are currently out of contract. I think it's around 20 million people are out of contract.
Because there's now almost as many mobile phones as people, of course.
That's right.
So therefore, there will be, as you say, a lot of mobile phones out of contract, 20 million, we think.
Yeah, now one of the downsides about broadband and indeed mobile phones is there isn't a huge amount of competition out there in the big scheme of things, but there are good deals to be had. So to give you an example, my broadband has hit the dizzying heights of 96 quid a month with TV and all the other bits that were thrown in there. I went over to another provider and cut my bill to £46 without losing any of the channels that I was using, or the sports, or all of that stuff came over, and I halved my bill. So that's an instant 600 quid saving a year. The other thing that people forget is, through channels like Amazon, for example, it's possible to add channels on if you want to watch a film, or if you're thinking about maybe watching a series. So you do the free trials and then people forget. Yeah. That can be costing you £5 here a month, 11 quid there. It's actually worthwhile going onto the website, because you can only do it through the website, finding out how much you're paying and cancelling the ones that you don't need, and then maybe subscribing to a channel that you really want.
Okay, so cancelling subscriptions generally. This is a big one, isn't it, potentially?
Yeah, this is absolutely the biggie. It's often the things that we don't realise that we're paying for. Now, if you go onto your bank account or to your credit card statement, or surprisingly, your mobile phone bill, you can actually find that you're paying regular subscriptions to your mobile phone bill that you won't know about. Have a look through all of those and look for the regular payments. You will see that you're paying for duplicate things like cloud storage. Maybe you clicked a button when you bought a new phone or a laptop or a gaming device. You might be paying for 3 or 4 of those. The same goes for antivirus software. We tend to panic and click on the option to protect what we have. Yep. Streaming. Do you need 3 music streaming sites? Do you need 4 TV streaming sites? It's very easy to cut those down. Streaming those down to 1 each can save you potentially, for most people, about 500 quid a year. Lots of people don't realise that when they upgrade their phone and buy a new policy, they just assume that the mobile phone company will cancel the old one. And of course,
because you don't have the phone anymore.
Exactly.
But they don't.
They don't. And unless somebody tells the insurance company, they'll just keep taking the money. And I spoke to one woman who was paying for 5 mobile phone insurance policies, which is outrageous. Again, if that's the case, and they should have known better, you can ask them to refund you. We could only get them to refund a year's worth of fees, but that got 800 quid plus interest.
Wow. Then the big one, mortgages. Now, obviously, mortgages have been, over recent months, a complete and utter minefield. As the Bank of England base rate has increased, obviously variable rates have increased, and therefore the cost on a variable rate mortgage for most people has increased. That's about 25% of people that have a mortgage will be on a variable rate. And then, of course, there's fixed rates, which really confuse people now, because my advice actually to people is that, because I think fixed rates are going to continue to reduce, if you're on a variable rate now, you should consider changing to a fixed rate maybe not immediately, because I think fixed rates will drop a little bit more in the next few months. What are your thoughts? What's your advice?
The tricky thing here is we're all being expected to, gaze into our crystal balls and know precisely what's going to happen. And this is where the value of a good mortgage broker comes in. Someone who looks at your circumstances and recognises what it is that you actually need. So, for example, it's not just about getting the best mortgage rate, it's about what your life plans are in the next year. Are you planning to change your job or move? We do, of course, have the nuclear options if people are really struggling and worrying about losing their mortgage. Then there are options like, none of them are easy, of course, as you know, but then there are options like interest only, extending
so you could
the
remortgage
term.
your repayment mortgage and go onto an interest only mortgage, which, I mean, you might not want to do permanently, but you could do it right now as a piece of respite, I suppose, temporarily.
Buy you some time.
And the other thing, of course, is, and I know this from being involved in an estate agency for years and years, is that you'll often go to somebody, particularly if you buy a property through an estate agency, and you take the estate agent's mortgage advice and their in-house broker, you'll get a decent mortgage, but the add-on products, such as life insurance, critical illness and so on, can be astronomically and disproportionately expensive. But of course you forget about those. You think, well, they're just running along in the background. And also beware of auto-renewal insurance policies where they renew before you realise they were going to renew. And of course they're renewing potentially at a higher rate than you might be able to get elsewhere. Martyn expert, Martyn James, thank you very much for now.
Thank you.
Okay, so I reckon we've saved you loads more than £100 already. However, now, with the cost of living still at the front of our minds, let's take a look at this week's Basket League, our analysis of the cost of essentials at each of the major supermarkets, so that you know where to spend your money wisely. Each week we analyse the price of 12 staple products across 5 of the most popular supermarkets, and this week we have got some movers. In the lead again with the cheapest basket is Aldi with a grand total of £18.89, closely followed by Sainsbury's at £19.39. Tesco is next with a total of £21.39 and Asda comes in at £22.51. And this week's loser with the highest basket total is Marks and Spencer's, but it's worth noting that they were the only supermarket this week to actually have decreased in their total cost, with the others having all increased. And now it's time to hear from you with this week's audience questions. So Tom Bennett says his monthly combined energy bill was £43 a month, now he's paying £114 a month, and says he sits under blankets during the day. He asked where all this money is going and why are the companies making billions in profit. Martyn, where's the money going and why are they making so much money?
So the most important thing to bear in mind here is even if you're not in receipt of any benefits, if you are struggling financially, in other words, the money that you've got coming in isn't enough to cover what's going out, or it doesn't leave you much left over, you meet the definition of financial difficulties, and energy companies are obliged to come up with a plan tailored to your own personal needs. Now, you have to push quite hard, but complain to them, and if they don't provide the help, the Energy Ombudsman can step in and look into why.
Thank you. Right, Sarah Rice, who is our second question, asked why energy bills are still set to go up this month, even though the government have capped prices. Great question. It is confusing, isn't it?
This is honestly trying to explain the energy price cap, the energy price guarantee, that's the government one, the Ofgem one, two separate things completely, and of course just the bonkers cost of energy at the moment is a bit ludicrous. Let's focus on April and July. April, we're still waiting for the wholesale price to drop for a little bit. The government's energy price guarantee, the maximum that we should be spending, has been frozen. It was going to go up to £3,000 on average. Yep. It's now frozen at £2,500. Caveat alert. It varies depending on what you're using.
For another 3 months, as an
That's for another 3 months, yes. Now, in July, all of the people that I speak to, all of the economists and energy experts are predicting a significant drop in the energy markets. This is why the government are also predicting that inflation is going to start to go down, because that's been one of the big drivers.
Well, we thought that this month.
Well, yes, exactly, and that just goes to show that we still live in very volatile times. However, we can start to expect the cost of energy to go down significantly over the summer, so hopefully this situation will be dealt with.
Let's hope so, needs to. And thirdly, Elaine Tanswell asked when prices in the shops are actually going to stop going up. Well, that speaks to what we were just saying about inflation. Apparently the driver behind inflation going up this time was predominantly food prices. So it looks like food prices are still on the up. But generally, when do you think we can see the peak? When do we think that prices in the shops are going to start coming down?
Well, I have to be honest. I think we're going to see this for a considerable period yet. Not forever, you know, maybe within a year we might start to see some notable changes.
But we won't see, I've just said prices going down. Of course, we won't see prices going down necessarily. What we will see is hopefully a reduction in the rate of growth in prices, the rate of inflation.
Absolutely. If you look at the basket of goods in terms of kind of what we've been talking about today, but the actual cost of, staples is outrageous, and that's far higher than the actual price of inflation, month on month. Supermarkets do have the capacity to transfer some savings where they're most needed to people by making certain ranges affordable whilst not driving farmers and producers out of business. I'd like to see them step in and reward their customers, seeing as they're taking away our loyalty points now as well.
The voice of wisdom and optimism, that's Martyn James. Thank you very much indeed. Great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's it for this week. This has been Money Talk. I'm Russell Quirk. Please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.